Snow pressed against the ranch house windows like a quiet plea, thick flakes dissolving on the glass and sliding down in thin trails. Christmas Eve had come again, unwanted and unavoidable, dragging memories behind it like tin cans tied to a bumper. Ethan Cole stood at the kitchen sink, hands braced on the counter, staring out across the frozen yard. The corrals lay silent, the cattle huddled close together, their breath rising in pale clouds. Everything felt paused, as if the land itself was holding its breath. He had not planned on opening the door to anyone tonight. The town was 30 miles away, the road half buried under snowdrifts, and he'd told himself that solitude was safer than hope. He'd eaten a cold supper and poured a drink he barely tasted. The radio muttered carols he didn't bother turning off. They reminded him of another voice, years ago, singing off-key while hanging tinsel on a crooked tree. The knock came soft, almost apologetic. Ethan frowned, certain he'd imagined it. Then it came again, firmer this time, knuckles against wood, a sound that cut through the house like a blade. He didn't move at first. Whoever it was would give up, he told himself. Nobody came out this far on Christmas Eve unless they were lost or desperate. Another knock followed, and with it a woman's voice, thin with cold. "Sir, please." Ethan swore under his breath and crossed the room. He opened the door a crack, letting in a rush of icy air and snowflakes that stung his face. A woman stood on the porch, hunched against the cold, a scarf wrapped tight around her neck. Her coat was too thin for the weather, its seams worn shiny. She held her hands together like she was praying, fingers red and raw. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said quickly. "I saw the lights. I was hoping. I'm looking for work. Anything. Just for the night, if you need help." Ethan's first instinct was to say no and shut the door. He'd learned to keep strangers at a distance. But then she lifted her head, and the porch light caught her face. The world tilted. For a heartbeat, he was no longer standing in his doorway. He was 10 years younger, watching his sister Anna step out of the barn, laughing as snow dusted her dark hair. The same sharp cheekbones, the same faint scar above the left eyebrow, the same eyes, gray-green, steady and searching. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. His hand tightened on the doorframe. "Anna," he whispered before he could stop himself. The woman blinked, confusion flickering across her features. "I'm sorry." He shook his head, once, hard. His sister was dead, buried on a hill overlooking the creek. He'd stood there and watched the coffin lowered into the ground. He'd felt the finality of it settle into his bones. This woman couldn't be her. And yet the resemblance was so exact it stole his breath. I thought you were someone else," he said, his voice rough. He forced himself to look away, to focus on the scarf, the worn boots dusted with snow. "You said you want work." "Yes." Relief softened her posture. "I can cook, clean, help with animals. I don't need much. Just a place to sleep and something warm to eat." Ethan hesitated. He should send her back to town. But the roads were bad, and the temperature was dropping fast. And every time he looked at her face, his chest ached with something sharp and unbearable. "Come in," he said at last, stepping aside. "Before you freeze." She murmured a thank you and hurried inside, stamping snow from her boots. The warmth of the house wrapped around her, and she let out a breath she'd clearly been holding. Ethan closed the door and leaned against it for a moment, his heart hammering. "I'm Ethan," he said, pushing himself upright. "You, Mara," she replied. She glanced around the kitchen, her gaze lingering on the small tree in the corner, undecorated except for a string of white lights. "It's nice here." He grunted and grabbed a blanket from the back of a chair, handing it to her. "Sit. I'll make some soup." As he moved around the kitchen, he felt her eyes on him. It made his skin prickle. He kept his back turned, focusing on simple tasks. The radio sang about peace on earth, and he nearly turned it off before remembering his hands were shaking. They ate in near silence. Mara took small, careful spoonfuls, as if she wasn't sure the food was really hers. Ethan watched her when she wasn't looking, noting the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, exactly the way Anna used to do when she was nervous. "Where are you from?" he asked finally. She shrugged. "Here and there. I grew up in foster homes. Never stayed anywhere long." That made something twist in him. Anna had hated the idea of leaving the ranch. She'd said the land was part of them, that no matter where they went, it would call them back. Ethan pushed the thought away. "You can help in the morning," he said. "I've got chores. If you do good work, you can stay a few days. Roads should clear after Christmas." Her eyes brightened, and for a moment, she looked heartbreakingly young. "Thank you. I won't be any trouble." Night settled heavy and deep. Ethan showed her the spare room, a small space that hadn't been used in years. He stood in the hallway afterward, staring at the closed door, memories pressing in. He slept poorly, dreams tangled with snow and laughter and a face he couldn't forget. Morning came pale and cold. Mara was already up when he entered the kitchen, hair tied back, sleeves rolled up as she scrubbed a pan. The sight startled him. Anna used to wake early too, insisting that mornings belong to those who claimed them. "You don't have to do that," he said. She smiled, tentative. "I wanted to help." They worked side by side through the day. Mara proved capable and quick to learn, moving among the animals with an ease that surprised him. The cattle seemed calmer around her. Even the old dog, Boone, followed her like he'd known her forever. As the hours passed, Ethan found himself talking more than he had in years. Small things at first: weather, repairs, the price of feed. Mara listened, really listened, nodding and asking questions. Sometimes she'd share something in return, a fragment of a memory from a place she'd passed through, a job she'd held briefly before moving on. By afternoon, the snow began again, thick and steady. They retreated to the barn, the scent of hay warm and comforting. Ethan climbed into the loft to fetch a tool, and as he turned, he saw Mara below, framed by slanted light. "You look like her," he said before he could stop himself. Mara stiffened. "Like who?" "My sister," he said quietly. The words felt heavy, long unused. "She died 5 years ago. Christmas morning." Mara's face softened with something like sorrow. "I'm sorry." He climbed down slowly. "You have her face. It's unsettling." She met his gaze, steady and unafraid. "Maybe she wanted you to have company this Christmas." The thought lodged in his chest. He looked away, pretending to adjust a strap. Maybe. Days passed. Christmas came and went, marked by a simple meal and the glow of the tree lights reflected in the window. Mara stayed, her presence weaving itself into the rhythm of the ranch. Ethan tried to maintain distance, but it grew harder. Sometimes he'd catch himself calling her Anna under his breath. Sometimes he'd wake convinced his sister was alive again, only to feel the loss crash over him anew. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Ethan finally asked the question that had been gnawing at him. "Do you know anything about your family?" Mara hesitated. "Not much. My mother died when I was young. I don't know who my father was." Ethan swallowed. Anna had left the ranch years ago, angry and restless, chasing a life beyond fences and fields. She'd come back only once, pregnant and frightened. They'd argued. He'd said things he couldn't take back. She'd left again before the baby was born. The accident had happened months later, a slick road, a spun truck. There had been no child with her, and Ethan had told himself there never was one, that he'd imagined it. "Do you know where you were born?" he asked carefully. "Near here," Mara said. "A small clinic in town." "That's what the papers said." The room seemed to tilt again. Ethan set his mug down before he dropped it. "What papers?" "Foster records. They don't say much." Ethan stared into the fire, heart pounding. The possibility was terrifying and fragile, like glass. "What was your mother's name?" Mara frowned, searching her memory. "Anna, I think." The word echoed between them. Ethan's breath left him in a rush. He looked at Mara, really looked at her, and saw not a ghost, but a young woman with his sister's eyes and his own stubborn jaw. Tears blurred his vision. "You're her daughter," he whispered. Mara's eyes widened. "What? My sister? Anna, she died. I didn't know about you. I should have." His voice broke. Years of regret surged up, raw and overwhelming. "I should have looked." Mara sat very still. "You're saying, you're my uncle?" He nodded, unable to speak. The silence stretched, thick with emotion. Then Mara stood and crossed the room, her steps hesitant. She stopped in front of him, studying his face as if seeing it for the first time. "I always wondered," she said softly. "I always felt like something was missing." Ethan reached out, then hesitated, afraid to touch her. She closed the distance herself, wrapping her arms around him. He stiffened, then sagged, clutching her like a lifeline. He cried then, deep, racking sobs he'd held back for years. Mara held him, her grip firm and forgiving. From that night on, the ranch felt different. Lighter. Mara moved through the house like she belonged there, and Ethan found himself smiling more, the ache in his chest easing. They talked about Anna, sharing stories until she felt present again, not as a wound but as a bridge between them. Snow continued to fall, blanketing the land in white. The world beyond the ranch seemed far away and unimportant. Inside, a family long broken began, quietly and imperfectly, to mend.